One of the things that you said to me when we went and spoke at the Capitol a few months ago was there's already laws that cover data, and we're talking about AI, and so that's a new tool. Does that mean that those laws don't apply to it? And so I'm thinking about like data privacy laws, things like that. Is there any, I'll just ask it as plainly as this, is there anything where you see current laws already cover some of the stuff in AI, or do we need brand new stuff out there to make sure that people are responsible?
That is the question of the day,
All
month,
right,
week,
I asked the question of the
year.
day.
Yes. No, so it is a great question. And I think I look at it from the framework of we are encountering something similar to when the internet came about.
I agree.
And I think sometimes people even go back to say, oh, this is like the invention of the wheel or electricity and all that. Whatever your take on that is, however you view generative AI in this space, for the purposes of this, I think I look back at it from internet law because that's more recently attributable. It's technology in that sense of more recent technology. I look at it as back in the 80s and 90s and even into the early 2000s, we had this concept of internet exceptionalism. So internet exceptionalism is kind of this concept of, do you need to treat the internet differently because it is something new, because it is different than all of the previous application that we've had of existing laws? And the answer, of course, is depends. It depends on whether it is so novel or nuanced that you do need something. So I think deepfakes is a great example of that. Right now we recognize we do have current privacy laws that protect a person's name, image, likeness, even their sound, their voice, depending on how the state has drafted the statute.
And that's everybody, not just celebrities, you're saying?
So mostly that's targeting celebrities.
Okay.
And even more so recently in the last 5 years or so, the NCAA's efforts to push into collegiate name, image, likeness rights has really spun and spurred a lot of development over the last couple of years from the state level to protect that and offer that as a protectable right and an actual right.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. Is it a right that someone has? And so that's why we look at it. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, that is the question, because why do any of this if it's not a right that we have a sovereign, name, likeness, and image?
Yeah. And that's why the right, if you think about, well, what right are you talking about? Well, ultimately all these fall under a bucket of privacy rights because it is your person, your interests that you're protecting as an individual. A lot of times, like I said earlier, it is oftentimes tied to commercialization of it. Except if you look at it there's a lot of Supreme Court cases, there's a lot of law built up over the years about right to privacy in your home, how that's expanded to even be outside your home, and that gets into a lot of even down to reproductive rights and things like that. So the right privacy is such a broad sweeping category, especially in the digital space. That's where you're seeing now a lot of them are targeting the ability to recognize this newer concept and making sure that, okay, we recognize in what I call AI exceptionalism, we have to re-examine what we have and where are the gaps. And if we have gaps, maybe we can close those gaps like we were just talking about and provide this right as an actionable protective right for individuals that aren't maybe well known or that aren't trying to commercialize something.
But with that one specifically, the strategy is just to copy and paste stuff that's already afforded to some to all. Whereas is it not?
It's not necessarily. So a copy and paste. So I don't want to get too much into playing one side or the other, but there are people that argue it's poorly drafted. The way that they're trying to go about it now is poorly drafted because it's lawmakers trying to just push something out ahead of elections. They didn't take the time to truly understand the technology and how to properly, again, getting back to definitions, what are the defined terms they're using to identify this. And the other question there too, a lot of what we're seeing in some of the newer bills is platform liability. So service provider liability, the liability of, like I said, this gets to that.
That's a whole separate conversation that I do want to come back to in a little bit, but keep on going. I don't want to go deep in it just yet.
Yeah, no, that I just want to highlight that's where some of the critiques are coming about from this perspective of these laws. What is the aim here? Is the aim to give individuals a private right of action to take and to pursue, or is it to hold someone accountable? Are you holding the the bad actor accountable, allegedly bad actor accountable? Or are you holding the platform, the tool provider, and even going a broader in scope over to the EU? the EU AI Act accounts for this and distinguishes between model developers and distributors and platforms and users and all of that. So it just depends. Like I think looking at what law, what area you're trying to cover and provide a framework and try to analyze around, like, is this sufficient in the AI age? Kind of like back in the day, we were saying, is this sufficient in the internet age?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we were determining like, okay, we don't have adequate means of stopping mass copyright infringement that's destroying the music industry, or we don't have a means of platforms being able to operate without being held liable for anything their users post. So we have Section 230, and the DMCA solved a lot for mass copyright infringement in the music industry and film and all that. So it's kind of cycling back. History repeats itself, and I think we're seeing that now. We're at the stage where it's trying to, even now, copyright still comes up in this space of understanding how do existing laws, how do they apply under an AI ecosystem and framework, and do they or do they not hold up? And if they don't, then maybe we can talk about where the gaps are.
Gotcha. What do you think leads to it not? Like, is it the fact that AI can now make decisions instead of just, give you insights? And that really goes back to the liability question, right? Charlie, and the idea of who is responsible. Is it the data? Is it the ones that build the models, or is it the ones that use those models? And so there's some aspects there.